Okay, y'all, this is exactly how I price my Airbnbs here in Gainesville. So, just recently got a new client that I'm working with. I had a nice little Excel sheet, got destroyed, don't know how. But anyway, we had remade it in Google Sheets. Very cool, very fun. So, this is exactly how I do it, right? So, I like to organize all this data. We're going to go left from right. This new listing, I start with the listing name, right? Just so you have something to reference. Very simple, very easy, very intuitive, right? Same thing, bed and bath, just a data point. You want to see maybe how much you're charging, what the averages is based on bedroom, stuff like that, yada, yada, right? So base price, right? So with this recommended base price, I like to use this PriceLabs market dashboard, right? Right here, boom. Okay, 3 bedroom, it's a median listed price, it's a median booked nightly price. So I like to start with the actual price that people are booking these size homes at. So I start at 162, and that's how we get a recommended price, my actual base price. So this is the base price depending on the actual listing, depending on the amenities, depending on where it's located, depending on a bunch of different factors. I set a price that I think would be good within PriceLabs dynamic pricing software. And something important is just calculate the difference between the percentage difference between the base price and the actual recommended price, right? Which will matter later, right, when you're adjusting for discounts or whatever. So whatever. Also put a cleaning fee in there. Again, just another data point, something to reference. It also is good to think about how this price will affect your base price as well when we're actually doing pricing strategy. Next, we got average length of stay. This is another important data point. I will get into that why in just a second. BP with CF, so base price with cleaning fee. So I just like to do this again, just to see things, visualize things, just get a broader sense of what's going on when you're doing these pricing stuff. So again, I'm basically just taking let's see what I'm doing, 100%, just so I don't lie, plus H5 and I5. Yeah, okay, so when we're doing the base price with the cleaning fee, basically all I'm doing is taking the base price and then I'm adding the cleaning fee divided by the average length of stay. So if the average length of stay is 3, it means that on average, a person books to stay for 3 days. So if we want to implement our cleaning fee and get an idea of how it affects the nightly price, we're going to want to take the cleaning fee and just divide it by the amount of days that are booked. And then you add that into your base price, and then you get an idea of what people are actually paying to book your place. Now on Airbnb, this what the final price that is advertised, right? Unless you have other miscellaneous like resort fees or linen fees or whatever other fees you like to implement in there. But this is like what the price that guests would actually see on Airbnb. And then when they actually follow through to go and book, then they add whatever on top for the taxes and whatever other fees Airbnb is going to take. Now, this is a personal touch of mine. So basically what we're going to take is this base price, right? And the base price, this is the base price that we chose, right? So this is like what I'm actually going to put into PriceLabs, and we're going to add 25%, right? And we're doing this because to utilize discounts, right? To incentivize bookings just generally. So again, it has a lot of SEO benefits. It has a lot of like consumer psychology benefits, right? You think that you're getting a bunch of incentives. There's a bunch of good reasons why it works, right? So if we're going to start out knowing that we're going to discount, I like to add a premium, right? So we're going to take the base price, what times 1.25, increase 175, boom. So now this will be the price that I will put into PriceLabs as my base price, right? Now we go over RBP with cleaning fee. So real base price with cleaning fee. So again, just another data point, just another reference point, right? We're taking the base price that I will actually put into PriceLabs. And again, we're just adding the cleaning fee divided by the average length of stay, right? So on average, we'd expect someone to pay or whatever. Well, yeah, on average, our base price with our current base price and the premium and the cleaning fee, we'd expect someone to see this price, or this is what our advertised price would be. And there's a lot of contingencies on this, right? I'm not just charging $215 flat across all days, all weeks, all whatever. What it really is just a manipulation point. But before, we're not gonna get too deep into that. So now we want to do average prices, right? So if we go back to this PriceLabs report, right? These are the same exact price, right? 162 median booked nightly price, right? So I also like these data points as well as median booked weekly price, right? So that's 131 and this is 114, right? In this little sheet, I implement that as well. And this is going to be important because when we're discounting our base rate, right? If I know that people are booking a weekly stay on average of 130, what I'm going to do is look at my base price and my premium and look at what people are willing to pay for a week, right? And that's going to tell me how much I would need to discount the price to incentivize a weekly stay if that was my pricing strategy, right? Or if that's what I was looking to do. So that's why those are important data points. So again, I'm literally just taking, I think I just rounded down just for nicer even numbers, but you could put whatever, you could exact number, it doesn't really matter, right? Now, this is an important portion of this, right? Which I actually had to go back and manipulate. If you say like base price, if you chose 140, right? And that was the nightly rate that you chose, and the weekly is 130 and the monthly is 110. The math ends up being really weird. So essentially the same rate that you would discount like a 3-day stay would be the same as a weekly stay if you don't adjust for the differences in price, right? And more simply, if the recommended price, as we see, is 162 and my judgment chose 140, then because I feel like it won't be on par to this nightly rate that's advertised, then it would only make sense to also decrease this number by the same margin. So that's exactly what we did, right? This is the actual math, right? So we're basically just taking the recommended average price, right, which was, again, just this median number, right, 162, and where I am multiplying it by 1 minus, and then if we go back, 1 minus the difference here, right, which essentially means we're just taking the 162 and we are multiplying it by 0.86 about, right, to reflect that price difference, right, and to also reflect what we'd expect people would be willing to pay, right, so for a property of this caliber, right, or within our competition. So that is just those numbers there, and then we just do this math across the board, right? So same thing, if we expect that this listing is below average, we took the difference in the pricing, just a much subjective opinion, and we're discounting it. All right, so these numbers are equal across the board. There's also a lead time, which it's a good variable. I think it's something important in Gainesville. Gainesville is just a super weird market, right? There's a lot of longer stays far in the future, and then the medium term is like weird, like the 6 days onward, or 6 days to like right before monthly stays. It's like wishy-washy, and then all of a sudden there's a big influx for short term, like 1, 2, 3 days. So if it could be a curve, it would be like a curve, a dip, and then it goes back up. It's because it's weird. But at least that's my experience from what I see. And even like the data that you see on like PriceLabs, that's just my interpretation, but perhaps it's wrong. But so whatever, this is a good metric. Because also lead time, if we don't know what lead time is, it's basically just the difference between when the person booked and when they're checking in. So basically people are booking for dates 3 weeks in the future. And that becomes important, especially like when we're using dynamic pricing, using PriceLabs, because basically if I don't have a booking within 21 days, if my calendar's empty, like for example, if today is Sunday, from Sunday 21 days is, I don't freaking know, 3 weeks. So Sunday, right, Sunday, hold on, sorry, Sunday. So something around here, right? The 31st or the 1st, right? So basically we see here, like if we don't have bookings within this threshold, right, from today to the 1st, we're going to have to start manually manipulating pricing, right? Using rule sets, using a bunch of these other things to incentivize. But that's why lead times is an idea, right? Because if we know most people are booking, the 1st is like the perfect window, right? We'd expect it to be where your pricing should be similar to what the averages are. In a lot of cases, that actually isn't the case, which is another thing to consider. Because again, just the nature of the market and it's property specific and all these other variables, so maybe I'm being a little confusing, but whatever. That's basically this idea of lead time. And yeah, for the sake of transparency, I'm just trying to say as much as possible. It's just so you understand my thoughts and at least you know that I'm thinking through it or considering these things, but whatever. So again, I like to use discounts, right? So basically, we took a base price, we added a premium, right? And we want to give discounts, right, to actually like realistically reflect the price we're actually looking to book at. Back to data points. If we chose our base price of 140, basically what we're saying is we're using it as criteria for a perfect stay, right? This is something that Sean Rockets talks about a lot, or he has talked about, which is basically this. My base price is 140, right? So that should be the average the average price at which things are manipulated, right? So I'd expect that after all manipulations, ideally, my calendar is fully booked with an average price of 140, right? Obviously, maybe weekends someone paid 250. Maybe during the week someone paid 60. But the goal is that we want our average to be around there. So when we're talking about perfect stays, we're basically talking about how the average length of stay is 3 days, and our perfect price, quote unquote, or what we'd expect our average price to be across the whole month, right? When we combine those two metrics, we get a nightly rate of 140 over 3 days, right? And that's like our perfect booking. So how do we actively or accurately reflect for this? So what we do is we take our base price with the premium, and we are K5. Yes. Okay, so that's what we're doing. So basically, I am taking the difference between our base price, right, what we actively expect we would make on average across the whole month, right? And we're dividing it by our base price for the premium, right? To see how much we would need to discount the price to get to that number, right? So that's what this discount is about. So basically, all things perfect, all things considered equal, 21 days out. So someone is going to book a 3-day stay at $140, right? And we incentivize that by offering a 3-day discount with an Airbnb, right? So then we would essentially get a perfect stay, right? And that's just based upon all these numbers and all these metrics, right? Like they all build on top of each other, right? Like we use the data, we picked a price point, based on our experience and our knowledge and the actual listing itself, we set our own price to actually reflect where we feel it fits within the market. And then we just go down this line and are doing some math, right, to implement that. And again, the discounting is important, 1, for SEO, 2, also for revenue optimization, right? 3, buyer psychology, right? A bunch of different reasons why these work. So that's what we do for 3-day, right? So that's like the first one that you're going to want to do in this chart, right? The next one I do is weekly, right? So again, weekly, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the average weekly price or the weekly rate that people are booking at, right? Which really is 130, but after we adjusted and did whatever, we got to 112, right? And we're taking that again as a portion of our base price, which is what we're actually going to be putting into PriceLabs. So we need to figure out how much we need to discount 175 over a week time frame to get to $112 a night on average, if that's where people are booking around. So again, we get 36. The next one I would do after this is monthly, right? Same idea. We're taking this average monthly booked price, which again really is 110, but after we added our subjective discount of what we think where it actually places in the market, we get 95. And then we see, or what I'm trying to say is we're dividing the monthly price by the base price that we're actually using in PriceLabs to see how much we actually need to discount it to get to 95. And then we get this number, 46. So then for the rest of these, you could just fill them in, right? So again, another like the thought process behind this, as well as if our 3-day stay is our perfect booking, right? Like we get $104 for a 3-day booking. And again, I'm just thinking as I'm going here, right? I want to do these videos as just like a raw kind of more what I'm actually thinking, my actual thought process, like the actual me actually working. You seeing me actually work these out, right? So that again, the actual thought process behind this is this. Our perfect stay is 3-day at $140. Again, if we want to peel back another layer, right? This is where it gets this kind of base price with the cleaning fee kind of gets important, right? So if our perfect stay is 140 at 3 days for 3 days, right? But the price that they're actually playing with the cleaning fee is 180. We might still be too high, right? Like we already initially decreased from the recommended base price, right? But what people are actually paying are higher, right? And obviously there's a little bit of manipulation, right? Because it depends on your operation. So unfortunately right now, that's the best price I can do is like 120. But if my cleaning fee was lower, then I would be able to still charge at a higher amount and collect more just because my operations were better, right? And we would naturally be closer to these prices, right? Just a thought. So this is how the cleaning fee starts to affect that. How it actually will play out as well is that in PriceLabs, you're probably going to need to add more specific manipulation, right? So maybe the price isn't 140, maybe it's 130, right? At the same discount schedule. Or maybe you need to add some short-term last-minute discounts around that 21-day, or start implementing your last-minute discounts around that 21-day period, right? So maybe you start 30 days out and control for that. So again, there are a lot of variables, a lot of things going on, a lot of interacting things, especially when you get on other platforms and you're in other property management softwares and different fees and there's different audiences, and it's pretty complicated really, or it can get very complicated if you're trying to look into that. But again, I say all this to say 3 days at 140 is our perfect stay, right? So with that in mind, we'd expect, if that's the average length of stay is 3 days, is that any stays before that 1 or 2 days, people will potentially pay a premium, right? Because they're atypical, right? It's not really conducive to the market. Maybe someone who's looking to only stay for 1 or 2 days is going to book at a premium. And that's what's built in naturally with our base price with a premium. Basically, if somebody stays on average, right, for 1 day, we want to charge them $175, right, for this place. And they're willing to pay a little bit extra, right? When we're actually like breaking down, we're looking at this, right? So across 3 days, someone will pay 140. For 1 day, someone will pay 170. So you're only really paying $30 more for that convenience of, oh, I'm just in town. Oh, I just need one place to stay. Oh, I need one night to crash. So again, there's also like how the travelers actually interact with the listing. And meaning what I'm trying to say when I say that is that there's different customers, different guests that are gonna book, right? So for the last minute solo independent traveler, maybe he's willing to pay a premium for your place because of the nature of his travel compared to the 3-day or a weekly, right? The week is going to be there for longer, right? They're going to be spending more. They're not spending $174 for one night. They're spending $112 across 7 days. So they're spending a lot more. So a lot of things to consider, a lot of different things go on. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't. So whatever. I say all this to say, again, that 1 day, people will probably pay a premium, right? 2-day, people will probably still pay a little bit of a premium, right? And instead of discounting what we're still discounting the base price, but it's going to be larger than what our perfect stay is, because we're really looking to get a 3-day stay. So with that in mind, every stay after 3 days, right? 4-day, 5-day, weekly, 2 weeks, monthly, we're happy for, right? We're like, okay, this is cool. Again, if we picture this as like a bell curve, and if we just follow, like, just say this is 1 day, it would be like 1 day, 2 day, we're up at 3-day, right? We're up at 4-day, and then we're like slowly going down. If you're following my mouse, maybe I could actually draw on this. So again, if we're like 1 day, 2-day, 3-day, 4-day, 5-day, 6-day, 7+. So if the perfect length of stay is, or average length of stay is 3, right? It means that the chart probably looks like this, or not exactly like this. I'm sure it's like higher up, like here, peak here, and then we're like, and then it also like, once we get past this, I feel like it goes back up as well with a certain amount of lead time. But again, it's just like a visual, whatever. So this is what I'm saying. Imagine this is like a little higher. So whatever, this is what I'm saying. 3 days, I perfectly say that's where the average is at, like it, and then I think it goes up. But whatever, that's my little take on that. But whatever. So the majority of people are around here. This is where the average amount. This is the average length someone is staying. That's where perfect price is, right? So again, we're expecting people will pay a little bit more for 2 and 1 days, just because whatever, that's what the math is. And then once we get past this, we're like, oh, this is cool, right? We'll give you a discount to book more days as an incentive, because we know they're not as common, right? Basically 3 days, perfect stay. 4 days, we're like, okay, this is cool. This is abnormal, right? So we'll give you a discount to incentivize this, right? Because again, we're also trying to maximize occupancy. We're also trying to get more. We're not trying to get 10 3-day stays in the month, right? We want 3-day stays. Maybe you want a weekly stay. Maybe you want a 2-day. Maybe you want a good mix of all the days, right? And that's the reality of what is going to happen also when you implement these discounts. But again, if you get, with this discount schedule, just the math, right? So if you get a weekly stay at 112 and then you get 3 2-day stays at 150, right? We're going to average out to that base price number, right? That we're looking to get. That's the idea with that. Yeah. So basically, we're discounting over the more days they book, which makes sense. And then this is also just a little thing I added, which is the min price. So min price, this again is just going to be subjective, right? What you, maybe the lowest price you're willing to take. So then the recommended min price, all I'm doing is some fancy math, which basically is it's just looking what the maximum discount is here. I don't like to do the monthly and the weekly. This is all the first time I'm thinking of this as well. So I just thought that these are the majority of the discounts that you're going to be giving anyway in Gainesville. So I just took the max, which is 36, and why it would even be less, I don't know, but that was just how my brain did the function, or the cells, whatever. Basically, I'm just doing some math to say that if the minimum price we're willing to take is 60, what is the minimum price I will be setting, which looks like this when we go to the actual pricing dashboard, right? If you're familiar with the platform, you get to set a minimum price right here, right? So if our minimum price that we really want is 60, what actual minimum price do I need to put in PriceLabs to make sure that's controlled for? So that even if we get a weekly discount, we're still only getting 60. Yeah. So that's my thought process behind pricing. That's how I did the pricing. Again, there's like a lot of different interactions, actual pricing software. There's different settings you can manipulate on PriceLabs. This stuff changes all the time. And then even if you have a set idea, then there's like seasonal changes. And then there's always changes with this sort of work. But again, this is just like a good kind of reeling it all in, just like having good information, or at least some information, right, in a specific place, and just a good benchmark for the ideas as well, right? Because also with these sheets, if we find we actually want the base price to be 150, like this could just all update and we'll get a better idea of how it works. Or as you progress, as you get more data about the listing, right, like you'll have actual numbers that you're able to manipulate. So yeah, that's how I do pricing. A little bit complicated, probably wasn't the best at explaining it. I'm trying to do this more unfiltered, behind the scenes look into this is what I'm actually doing. When people are hiring co-hosts, when they're hiring property managers or short-term rental people, they put in this much thought. Do they even have any idea about the complexity of how this stuff works. And it's not to brag, it's just for me to be open and honest, to be like, hey, like I do this work, I do it every day. And my goal really is to optimize your listing. Like really, I really do feel like I'm good at revenue management, getting people in, making house money. Yeah. Hope you learned something. If I elaborate and you thought it was confusing, just let me know. I will answer any questions or specific questions. If you did watch this video, that'd be pretty crazy. And hopefully if I continue to do this, I will be a little bit more concise and clear. Yeah, I'll see you.